Welcome back to Author Update, your source of publishing news that actually matters to your career.
This week, traditional publishing gets a big December lift in the AAP StatShot report. Hachette climbs to number 3 among U.S. publishers, while the broader market stays basically flat. We've got fresh data on how avid readers discover and buy books in 2026, plus a major warning sign as that thing we've been predicting finally happened. Block slashes thousands of jobs and blames AI for it. Also, Spotify will launch audiobook charts. There's a new business plan generator for authors inside of Author Media. Julia Quinn is smashing it on Kickstarter with her historical romance curated collection. And podcasts, this is the exciting part for Thomas, podcasts officially surpassed talk radio in listening time. Let's get into it. Let's update.
You just gave away the whole show.
That's what I'm supposed to do.
So we have the December numbers from the American Association of Publishers. And while we've been reporting a lot of doom and gloom for traditional publishers, the traditional publishing industry had a really great December. And before you think, oh, well, it's December, of course sales go up in December. How these reports work is you compare this December to last December.
Right.
So the fact that Christmas is happening doesn't give you a bonus because, I hate to spoil it, Christmas also happened last December.
What?
So every year it comes around, much to the chagrin of my children. They would like to see it every month at least.
So total revenue across all tracked categories reached about $1 billion in December. The figure stands 9.4% higher than the previous December in 2024. Year-to-date revenues for the full year was $14.6 billion, which is up 1.1% above the same period of 2024. Now this, I'm going to give you the data because that stuff matters to me. This draws data from about 1,300 publishers, and it's measuring net revenue from sales to bookstores, wholesalers, online retailers, direct to consumer, and other channels. It looks like trade consumer books delivered the biggest monthly gain. Revenues reached about $834 million in December, which, if you remember that it was $1 billion, that's the majority of the money that was made in December. And that is 14.2% higher than the previous year. The physical formats seem to lead the way. Hardback sales were $307.6 million and rose 13.5% over the previous year. Paperback sales were $296.3 million and jumped 27.5%. So I'm going to say paperback sales jumped 27.5% over the previous year.
Mass market is still holding out. It hasn't dropped to zero. It's getting closer and closer. What are the mass market?
It fell 60%, but it's not zeroed out.
So that's actually should give some context because people who were buying mass market paperbacks are now just buying paperbacks. And the distinction between mass market and regular paperbacks, I think, is going away. The interesting thing that I saw in the report, and one of the things that I've been following all year as we've been reporting on these numbers, is ebooks versus digital audio. So ebooks versus audiobooks. About 7 or 8 months ago, audiobooks surpassed ebooks in these charts in total sales. So traditional publishers are making more money from audiobooks than they're making from ebooks. A couple months ago, it switched back where ebooks had regained the crown, but they have now fallen hard. Of the pie, the audiobook wedge is 11.1% of total sales, and the ebook wedge is all the way down at 9.5%. So that's a big advantage for digital audio. Now, we should give some important context here. Ebook sales are dominated by indies.
Yeah.
The ebook charts, often you'll see the whole top 10, and there's not a single traditional author in there. So there's a big readership. In fact, we have a whole segment on it coming up on ebook whales, the kind of person who buys 100 books a year. They're buying most of those as ebook, or they're using the Kindle lending library to read those books. Those kinds of readers don't read traditional books. They're not captured in this market. The traditional publishers have already lost those readers almost entirely. And that's part of the reason why this ebook wedge is so small. Because I know many of you are indie authors and you're like, these numbers don't track with what I'm seeing at all. In fact, I see an inverse of this. Ebook is number 1, audiobook is number 2, paperback is number 3, and hardback is number 4. It's just taking the chart and flipping it upside down effectively for you.
It's important to know how to use this data, right? If you're an indie author, you should not be looking at this and saying, "Oh, there's no money in ebooks." That's not how you treat this data. This is what Trad Publishing is reporting happened with them last year. So they're definitely all in on the physical copies. Especially in December, the gift industry is huge. Now, I do have a question about it because the increase of 14.4% and 27% on the trade paperbacks, that means books were selected more than anything else as gifts for this year. And so my question is, why were books the hot ticket item? Is it because it's like a budget purchase? It's like $20, easy to ship, and you can personalize a little message with it. So, here's the Charlie Kirk book, here's the Bible, what
It wasn't the Charlie Kirk book. You could not buy that book for love or for money. I had to wait a month and a half. I finally got my copy. That was the most back-ordered book I have ever seen. It was quite frustrating, actually. I think part of this is as we move into kind of the Temu-ification of retail, where people can go on Temu or Wish.com and get really cheap stuff, the need for physical items and like the giving of physical items doesn't have the special punch that it had 10 years ago or 20 years ago. Like I did this research. It's like, oh, you gave me a cheap thing from Wish.com or something that seems like it, even if you got it at JCPenney. So the other thing is like you go to Wish.com and then you go to the mall and it's all the same stuff from the same Chinese factories. And yet a book, especially a nice hardback, when we have another segment coming up about a romance author who's raised hundreds of thousands of dollars with really nice hardback books that she didn't even write. Stick around for that segment. We'll get to it here in a little bit. But those kinds of books, those really nice physical items, make for really great gifts. And I've always thought that books make for great gifts we give our children.
Yeah, books are great.
It's like a B-52 coming over on Christmas, just airdropping books on top of our children. But we're also not a normal family, I think, in that regard.
Well, I mean, books are great. They're inexpensive. They don't take up a whole lot of space. They don't make a mess when you play with them, and they're quiet.
Challenge accepted. My children have found ways of making messes with books.
Well, something I noticed that this isn't covering, which I do want to know about, are gift cards. Barnes & Noble gift cards. Amazon Kindle gift cards. Like I want to see what the numbers are on that for December as well, because is it people wanting to choose books that are important to them that they're sending? Are they choosing books they think the gift recipient will like, or are they just like, hey, go have yourself a good time at Barnes & Noble?
I actually know the answer to this because we studied this in business school. So a gift card from a balance sheet perspective is technically a loan. It's a debit and a credit on your T chart. And it's why companies always want to retire their old gift cards, because from a certain perspective, it's not income until you get the cash, but you don't get the income until they redeem it, because you owe that person a debt effectively of $20 worth of merchandise for the $20 card. And this is why Starbucks is actually a bank. The reason why they grew so quickly is that they are operating this whole currency, this gift currency of Starbucks gift cards. And there is, at any given time, billions of dollars worth of unredeemed Starbucks gift cards floating around in the economy. And Starbucks is able to spend that money, even though they don't realize that money. It's kind of complicated, but I can tell you from a report like this, since StatShot is looking at publishers, not at retailers, it's only looking at redeemed gift cards. So if grandma bought you a $25 gift card for Barnes & Noble and said, get you something nice, and you didn't spend that gift card until January, that would not be tracked in this. But if she gave you a gift card and it arrived in the mail on December 19th and you went to Barnes & Noble on Boxing Day and you bought yourself something then it would be realized in these numbers.
Okay. Well, moving on
Boxing
to our
Day
next
is a
story.
holiday they have in Canada, which is either they box each other in boxing matches or they put all of their Christmas presents back in boxes. I've never been able to get a straight answer from a Canadian on that.
The Canadians are keeping
Somebody
their
can
secrets
clarify
closed.
to us in the chat. I love the idea of a bunch of Canadians all going to boxing matches the day after Christmas.
It would be hockey. Like, come on. Which is a boxing match on ice, so who knows?
That's right.
Hachette climbs to third place among U.S. publishers with their 2025 earnings growth. They
I think it's
reported.
Hachette.
Really?
It's French.
What?
It's
Why?
most of our publishing companies are owned by Europeans. This is the big unfortunate reality, is that the American publishing industry has been colonized by Europe, and Hachette Book Group is one of those European colonizers colonizing our American literature scene.
Now I'm going to say it wronger.
Hachette.
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 Anyway, they reported 11% revenue growth overall. This does include the full year impact of that Union Square and Company acquisition. They closed that deal with Barnes & Noble in November of 2024, and this strengthened their children's and illustrated books portfolio. This has lifted them to third place among all U.S. publishers. It now ranks behind Penguin Random House and HarperCollins. Circana says that this is the first time that Hachette has held that position since 2012. They moved ahead of Simon & Schuster in the rankings, and so the U.S. and Canada now represent 28% of their parent company, Lagardère. How do you say this? I don't know. Lagardère Publishing's total revenue.
As a rule of thumb of French words, just don't pronounce the consonants.
Look,
and you're
even if I
closer.
tried to say it right, the French would be mad. So
that's true.
It doesn't matter. So yeah, that's basically just the news on that. I don't personally see a whole lot there. Thomas, is there something else you want to?
So the big trend here I want you to see is the growth when a industry is contracting, which is what we've been seeing with traditional publishing for the last several decades, particularly since indies started gaining market share. Kind of the long-term trends are indies like Pac-Man gobbling away market share. The way that the big publishers are navigating this competitive landscape with indies, with really aggressive indies, particularly on pricing, is through acquisitions. And so the big five publishers can show growth, even though the industry is contrasting, because they're buying up the little publishers and adding those sales, even if they're contrasting sales, to their balance sheets or into their income statements. And so they can say, look, I have revenue growth, and they do. Right? They sold more books than they did last year. Another thing to point out here is that the biggest growing sector for Hachette was their board game sector, which I didn't realize just what a big sector of Hachette's sales were board games. Board games and stationery are, I think, 19% of the 19%. Sales. Yeah. And this also explains why Barnes & Noble has such a big board game space. It's because Hachette's one of their biggest vendors. And so Hachette has basically put pressure on.
I don't know. Barnes & Noble is cutting their board game section, though.
Well, that is very interesting that they're doing that, right? Because they used to have a really big board game section. Our local one still has a big board game section, comparatively so. Right. The selection's not that great. It's a bunch of Euro games, which, it's great if that's what you're into.
Yeah,
I prefer what's known as
Ameritrash. Okay, like
Ameritrash board games.
Casuals.
But the board game sector is doing really well. Euro games are really popular, and I think that's all we need to say about this. But I do want to say we're equal opportunity reporters here. So when the traditional publishing is doing well, and Hachette was able to beat inflation, they only beat inflation by 1%. In their book sales, but hey, they beat inflation. They're not shrinking.
Hey,
they're acquiring their way to sustained growth, which I'm sure is making their shareholders, their French shareholders, very happy.
Don't watch this, French people. I'm sorry.
Thanks for your help in the Revolutionary War, by the way.
Yes.
And for the Statue of Liberty. Those are great.
I feel like we paid them back twice, but y'all did good. Okay. All right, so Written Word Media has released the results of its 2026 reader survey on February 2nd. The company surveyed 3,589 readers from its own audience. These respondents subscribe to daily or weekly email newsletters such as Free Booksy, Bargain Booksy, Red Feather Romance, and New in Books. More than 1 in 3 respondents finished over 100 books in 2025. So this is important data to pay attention to.
And also, I want to jump in real quick and explain. This is not surveying readers generally. The
Correct.
most common kind of reader is a dude who buys one James Patterson book a year or Dan Brown book a year, and that's it. And there are millions of that kind of reader. And most authors don't care about that kind of reader because that kind of reader won't buy from you if your name isn't Dan Brown or James Patterson.
But for those of you who are using Free Booksy, Bargain Booksy, those kinds of strategies to promote your books, that would be romance, that would be lit RPG, a lot of kind of like the pulpy stuff that people tend to binge read. This is really valuable information for you. I would really pay attention to this data. More than 1 in 3 respondents finished over 100 books in 2025. That's about 2 books a week. 76% regularly read ebooks, usually on dedicated devices like Kindles or Kobos. 51% also read physical paperbacks or hardcovers, and 22% listen to audiobooks. Now, the way that they're finding these books is still pretty consistent. Amazon leads at 68%. So 68% of people are finding through Amazon's SEO system. Email newsletters follow closely at 64%. So if you still haven't gotten your newsletter up, you need to start doing this. Goodreads accounts for 46%, friends and family for 45%, which tells me Goodreads is worthless. And I hate Goodreads. I'm sorry. It's a personal thing. And social media accounts for 42%, which still counts as personal recommendations. Okay. You guys need to consider social media as like word of mouth instead of
Goodreads doesn't count as social media?
No, Goodreads is a flaming hot garbage fire of...
I like Goodreads.
Okay, I'm glad you like it. I can't stand it. 25-year-old website. Libraries have helped 29% of readers find new titles. Author websites was 30%. Bookstores still matter. They showed up at 27%. And AI tools barely registered at 1%. Now, I want to see how that changes next year, because I think that the changes that are coming down the AI pipeline haven't hit the majority of users yet.
This has been something that's been a lot of discussion in the AI circles right now, because AI, and we have stories coming up about this, massively disruptive. A lot of people are losing their jobs. A lot of technical jobs are getting completely overhauled. If you go to cities that have a lot of technical people, like Austin, where I live, or San Francisco, people are walking around like they've, are in the middle of a war zone. They kind of have that vacant stare of just shock because of how much things have changed, both for good and for bad. Meanwhile, like in the rest of the world, most people like don't even know how to use ChatGPT. They use it like Google. They don't know that you should be typing paragraphs, not sentences, to get good results from AI. And they're not paying for it, and they don't really know what it is, and they don't use it. And so there's this huge differentiator kind of between the people who eventually will have AI as their boss, potentially. And I have some things to say about that later. Stick around. We have a lot of news to cover. And people who are learning how to use AI to get more done. But we're still not at the point where people are taking a picture of their bookshelf and asking ChatGPT, what are some other books like these books that I already like? ChatGPT can do that. But ChatGPT doing it and readers knowing that it can do it, we're still not there. And this audience skews towards fiction almost extensively. People don't binge read nonfiction 2 books a week unless they're in school. And I will say, I suspect far more nonfiction books are getting recommended through AI tools. Than
it's a solution to a problem instead of a enjoyment thing. There's a few more numbers we should talk about. Median monthly spend on books landed at $15, while the average reached $29.56. Most readers are paying under $5 per ebook. 26% of them subscribe to Kindle Unlimited. Another 25% prefer to download free books whenever possible. So keep that number in mind.
These are speed readers. And if you can read two books a week, that's $8 a year, or sorry, $8 a month. And if you're buying your books at $20 a book, you're looking at
Well,
$160 a
ebooks
month.
is $40.
Okay, so ebooks, it drops down to 40, but still that's expensive. That's more
Yeah.
than Netflix. And these are people who are choosing to read books instead of watching Netflix. So
Right.
if you're reading 2 books a week, that's got to be cutting into your streaming time. And so at that point, when it comes to pricing, you need to be thinking, how does my book compare to Netflix? And for a slow reader, if it takes me 10 hours to read your book because I'm a slow reader, and your book is $10, it's $1 per hour of entertainment. That's a good deal. But if I'm a fast reader and I can read your book in 1 hour, well, that's $10 for an hour of entertainment. That's not a good deal.
Right.
So
Right.
this is how knowing who your target reader is, knowing your Timothy, and one of those things is how fast of a reader they are, because how fast of a reader they are affects how you structure your sentences. It affects how you structure your paragraphs, and it affects how you price your books. Because if they're a fast reader, you can sell more books to that person, but you need to price the individual books cheaper, which is the indie strategy, right? Indies really focus on this kind of reader where they write lots of cheap books for people who read very quickly, and who don't and who own a Kindle or like to listen to audiobooks.
Now, there is strong support for indie authors. They rated the importance of backing self-published writers at a median of 8 out of 10 across all their brands, with free Booksy readers scoring at the highest at 8.2%. However, that is not reflected when it comes to buying direct from authors. Only 9% prefer to buy direct from authors. 56% expressed no strong preference. So you need to keep in mind that your reader cares about the reader. They care about themselves. They just want to buy their book from where they're used to buying their book. So if you think you're going to break the wheel and then give them a new wheel, that's probably not going to happen. Audiobook listeners overwhelmingly want human narrators. More than 80% prefer them. Fewer than 1% favor AI voices, which is really surprising to me considering that this is that binge consumption market.
When you frame the question this way, people are always going to choose, I want the premium product,
the humans,
than the
right?
non-premium product. If the choice is, what would you rather have, no audiobook or an AI audiobook, which is often the choice that the author is facing because they can't afford the time and the money to get a human to produce their audiobook, then the math shifts around a little bit. Another group of readers that is a massive group of readers that is very untargeted, but they fit inside of this whales, and some of them may be in this data, are truckers. There's a lot of truckers in the United States, and they binge listen to audiobooks. And they're very different than the kind of people in this data who are binge reading romance ebooks.
But they're also still listening to audiobooks on disc too. A lot of them are putting discs into a disc reader.
Still?
Yeah. I mean, if you look at truck stops, they still have the audiobook carousel to get CDs and put them in. That's like the worst way to listen to audiobooks. I'd rather do a cassette tape.
Although if you're a trucker and you know that you're going to be in the truck for the next 90 minutes, that CD experience actually works in that context. It's the least worst way to experience a CD. But yeah, CDs are terrible for audiobooks. And I suspect a lot of truckers have shifted over to listening to politics or podcasts.
Talk radio,
which is why we've seen such a big shift in trucker politics and why truckers have become a political force. They're not much of a political force in the United States, but in France and in the Netherlands, those countries get shut down by the truckers almost once a year.
Canada had that issue when they tried it there.
Yeah, Canada got shut down by the truckers. And so this is a group that's surprisingly powerful in very interesting ways, but they're not high status. They are a low status kind of person. People don't think of truckers as a high status person, and they don't think of them as very powerful, and they don't think of them as customers. That's a missed opportunity because they have money to spend on audiobooks, and some of them are whales, like what we're talking about in this segment.
All right, so moving on to a prediction that we made that is just now starting to bear fruit.
Yay.
Block slashes nearly half its workforce because of AI. It is cutting more than 4,000 jobs. Jack Dorsey, the guy who used to run Twitter, is now running this company. And he sent out a tweet. I hope it was like an email too, but he sent out a tweet where he said, hey, we're cutting 4,000 jobs. We're just ripping the Band-Aid off, and we're going to be done. We're just going to get the pain over with now. He said that intelligence tools have changed what it means to build and run a company. We need significantly smaller teams because of the accessibility of these tools to do more and do it better. And their shares went up.
By tweet. I just pulled up he didn't say I sent this email to the team today. He just posted a tweet laying off half of his company. Welcome to 2026, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, man.
I will say he spent $500 million on severance. Everybody's getting like 20 weeks of severance plus additional severance for how long they've been in the company. So,
but that's going to be spread out over 6 months. And he reported 2.87 billion gross profit for Q4, and then he went up 10% in the stock market.
Instantly, the stock market shot straight up. If you pull up his company, and it's an easy stock ticker to look it up, it's XYZ is the stock ticker for blocks. There's this line for the last couple of days, and then this shot straight up to the air. And there's an important thing to realize about the stock market, and that is the stock market has already been controlled by the AI for the last 10 or 15 years. It was the first industry to get fully automated. And if you're like, what are you talking about? Let me ask you a question. When is the last time you purchased an individual stock? You probably don't. You probably have your money in a mutual fund, which is managed by an AI, or you have it in an ETF, which is even more popular and even more managed by an AI. Sure, there are humans who are involved in these ETFs, and there are humans involved in the boards of these companies, but the humans are bound legally so that they can't do what they want to do. They have to obey the AI and what the AI wants because of this concept of fiduciary duty. And every single one of those humans has their hands tied with fiduciary duty. And so if the AI demonstrates that it wants and demands layoffs, the market is rewarding layoffs. And so every CEO of every company is looking at this, and they're like, my goodness, Jack Dorsey was able to boost his stock by 10% or 20%. No, it surged as much as 25% in after hours trading right after he made the announcement. It's gone down a little bit in trading. I haven't looked at it in the last couple of hours.
They all CEOs know that they have staff bloat. And so, I mean, Elon Musk has been banging this drum for a while. You know, he's all about tearing a company down 80% to find the 20% that are working and cutting the rest.
Actually, because this Jack who just did this layoff, do you know what company he was running before this one? Twitter. And Elon Musk came into Twitter and he laid off 80% of the people working there, and Twitter did better, not worse. And this is that was the first shot across the bow, but everyone hated Elon Musk's politics. They were so blinded by his politics, they didn't see what he was doing as a business person. As you add people to an organization, you add complexity, where suddenly there's more people taking care of the people who are taking care of the people and fewer people who are actually doing anything. This is a challenge that armies had in the ancient world.
And errors compound.
Yeah, if I want to invade my neighbor, I just get my army together, I get all of the war band, and we go and we attack our neighbor. But if we want to attack their neighbor, well, now we got to bring food. So now we've got to bring all this food with us, and we got to bring all these cows, and we got to bring all these people to take care of the cows and help carry the food. And if we want to attack their neighbor, now we have to bring more food and more people and food for those people and food for the people taking and suddenly your army is like 90% logistics.
And if you're Rome going to North Africa, people are already predicting you're going to Rome.
I was going there. So one of the advantages that the Romans had was that Italy was a peninsula where they were able to use the ocean around the peninsula to be able to move armies and move the food separately.
And they're Italians.
Why
they're pasta.
Rome,
they're just taking pasta.
Yeah, Rome was able to push farther into Africa and into the Middle East than it was to its northern border, because the farther it got away from its river system, the more difficult it was. It's the same challenge you have with rockets. The more fuel you put in a rocket, the more fuel weight you have to compensate with more fuel. And so adding people to a company doesn't increase the productivity of the company, because most of those people aren't doing anything. They're sitting on meetings, they're sending emails, they're helping with alignment, and they're helping with communication. All of those kinds of intermediary tasks can be replaced with an API, and by people who know what APIs are, because the actual people writing code, the actual people screwing in light bulbs, the actual people working with their hands to build things is often vanishingly small in these organizations. This organization, 10,000 people at Block, I'm guessing less than 1,000 of those people actually wrote code in the last week. Most of those people do something else. And at one point, it basically starts to feel like daycare for adults.
And you're looking at this need for alignment, because the rise of the management class, middle management, that thing we all hate, came up because of the increasing complexity of these things, and you needed to go somewhere to continue to align yourself to headquarters values. This is what we did in the military, right? We would all go and stand in boxes, and when you stand in a box, which is what we call formations, you align yourself with the guy next to you and the guy in front of you. Now you're a self-organizing formation, and it reduces the complexity required drastically. Then you listen to whatever idiot is in charge of you, and he tells you the goals for the day, and you align yourself with those goals, and you accomplish those goals, and you have no idea if that's doing anything useful, but you know what it is you're supposed to do. And this is what management does. Well, now management can be replaced by AI, because now the doers just have to be aligned to the top goal, and the top goal can actually distribute through AI or through APIs, through the programs and apps they tell their employees to have, and they can now do it themselves. They're now self-organizing.
We got the kindest super chat from Jana. She said, while you're listening to the history lesson, don't forget to like and subscribe and ring the bell. Ringing the bell will help you beat. Thank you, Jana. And thank you for a super chat. This is a great way to support the show. And for those of you who don't know what ringing the bell does, it allows you to be notified on your phone when we go live. So if you want to watch live, ringing the bell is the way to do it, but you have to subscribe to ring the bell. And there's a couple other angles here I want to talk about, because everyone is framing this as an AI issue, and AI is part of it, right? AI makes things efficient, but companies have been getting efficiency gains by laying off middle managers for decades. This is not some new thing that was just discovered. One of actually Steve Jobs, the model that Elon Musk used when he took over X and laid off everyone was copied from Steve Jobs when he took over Apple in the 90s. And you're like, what? Steve Jobs took over Apple in the 90s? I thought he founded Apple. Well, he did, but he got fired from his own company. He went off, he started his own company, and then Apple floundered without him. And when he came in, one of the things he realized was that they had started hiring bozos into management. This is Steve Jobs' term, bozos. And he said there was a Cambrian explosion of bozos, because bozos, once you have one bozo, he hires other bozos around him. And then those bozos hire bozos until there's bozos everywhere. And so Steve Jobs, when he came in to Apple, he just was like a meteorite, like extinction level event for the bozos. And he was very famous for firing people and being very quick to fire people. And so what's happening now is that CEOs are AI washing the layoffs that they already needed to do, partly because they way overhired going into COVID when money was cheap.
But AI is also an easy bad guy. People aren't blaming Jack Dorsey. They're blaming AI. You see how that works?
Not my fault. The AI made me do it.
Right,
and
right.
He's not entirely wrong.
This is just where the market is, guys. No, you were going away.
So how do you navigate this? Because let's say you have one of those jobs where your job is mostly sitting in on meetings and Zoom calls and emails. My encouragement for you is to start using AI very aggressively, because the people who can automate the most of their job with AI and are the most efficient with AI will be the survivors, right? So if I have instructions, let's say upper management, and I need to let go I have 10 managers under me, and I have to let 5 of them go. I'm going to let the 5 go who are the least productive. And the most productive ones are likely going to be the ones who are using AI the most efficiently to do better work. Because saving time on the minutia gives you more time to work on what's really important. Because there are important things that managers do, and you can still do that. And a lot of it is your interpersonal interactions and encouraging people and coaching, helping your team become better at their job. And this is really important to figure out if you want to survive in this new era. Because what we're going to see, and I've predicted this before, and somebody sent me, I think Ted actually sent me a story about this. I've been predicting for a long time we're going to see basically a sword cut through the economy. And there's the people who are the boss of AI and people who AI is their boss. And I always use the example of Amazon drivers being told where to go, but there is now an even more dystopian example of this. Burger King is now putting headsets on their employees, and the headsets are listening to every word they say while they're on the job. And the headsets are powered by ChatGPT, and it monitors whether they're saying please and thank you, and whether they're having a smile and having good interactions.
Does it give them a little shock if they're not being polite enough? Like, I don't like new Burger King.
So it's just a pilot right now. I think it's in like 500 Burger Kings, but they're likely going to be rolling it out to more people. And this is where we're headed, right? Where you're either the boss of the AI, coding the AI, and you know what RAG is, you know how to prompt, you understand prompt engineering, and if you don't, I'll give you one tip right now, and I may need to harp on this on every episode for the next few months, and that is paragraphs, not sentences. The biggest mistake that people make is that they type a sentence into AI thinking it's Google when they need to be typing a paragraph into AI, or even multiple paragraphs into AI. And the quality of the output that you get is dramatically different. And there's a whole kind of idiot on the internet who will type a sentence into AI just like they do on Google, get a terrible response, and then come to the conclusion, not that they are flawed, but that the AI is flawed. It's like, I didn't know how to use this drill, so the drill is broken. It's like, no, the problem was you didn't type enough words into the chat box. You need to type a paragraph if you want to get a good output.
Thomas, I'm going to talk for a little bit more. I need you to figure out something for me. I accidentally, the thing moved. I accidentally banned Dawn Chaser 115 and their comments were removed. I don't know how to undo that. Like I was about to click on a comment to put it up here, and it banned this person. I did not mean to do that, Dawn Chaser. Okay, like everything moved
Dawn
up.
May be out. And you may have nuked him from the whole.
Like I did not mean to do that. I'm sorry. Like we'll try to get that fixed. And
your punishment for leaving a savvy comment that we wanted to put on screen is that you are banned.
Like I know, everything just shifted up, and then I can't undo it. Okay. Anyway, the thing that I was going to say is, how does this apply to authors? You need to remember that you are the CEO of your own company. You run your publishing company. You need to use AI tools to be optimized and to use efficiency. If you don't have meetings with yourself, maybe you should, so that you're keeping yourself in alignment with your overall goals, whatever your goal is. Am I going to produce a lot of words this month? Am I focusing on my newsletter marketing? What does growth look like? Think about having these kinds of meetings with yourself and just determining if you're hitting goalposts that you're setting for yourself. This is something you can draw from what CEOs are doing now. Now, of course, these CEOs are also trying to keep their jobs and trying to keep shareholders happy. So you can toss out a lot of what they're doing there, but a lot of this is just streamlining. It's just optimization. And if you can streamline and reduce your costs and still produce a great product, then that's absolutely the way you should be approaching this kind of thing.
All right. Our next story is Spotify has launched a new audiobook chart for US and UK listeners. And this is a huge opportunity for you to become a best-selling author on a brand new chart. Jonathan?
They have indeed launched this new chart. It includes an overall top audiobooks list that's focused on the US. They also offer dedicated lists for popular genres. These genres would be romance, mystery and thriller, self-help, sci-fi and fantasy, and biography and memoir. The rankings update every week based on actual listening data from users. So that's not just sales, because you know how Spotify handles this. They do it through minutes listened. So the winners are the ones actually being listened to. Users can get to these charts with a few simple taps in the Spotify app. You open the app, you tap the search tab, you select the Audiobooks hub, scroll down to the dive deeper section, and then tap audiobook charts. That seems a little convoluted. They should probably make that easier. Right now, Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte holds the #1 spot on the US overall chart. I wonder why. Margot Robbie, if you're living under a rock, Margot Robbie is just released a movie, or is the lead actress in a movie, Wuthering Heights, doing it again. Spotify has reported a 440% increase in audiobook listens on that title since the trailer for the new film adaptation dropped last September. First-time listeners jumped 260%, which is important because that means they're using Spotify as a free means of discovery. People will use Spotify with ads to find out if there's something they want to check out or not. And the movie itself is doing good at the box office. This fits into Spotify's larger push into audiobooks. Premium subscribers will receive 15 hours of listening time each month from a catalog of 500,000 titles. It has used page match, stuff we've reported on this show. It also has its own publishing and distribution programs to help independent authors get their work into their ecosystem. You can now track and see exactly how well you're doing. So this could be a possible strategy for audiobook people, is to try to get onto the Spotify charts for that week. Just figure out how you can make it happen. It'll take some strategery. You're going to have to do some tactical planning, placing your book, and then doing adjacent promotional tactics like advertising or whatever.
You also need to have written the kind of book that's popular with the kind of people that are on Spotify.
Correct.
Spotify is a very particular kind of audience, and
they tend to be younger.
You personally don't pay for Spotify, I would be very surprised if you have a chance to rank, because likely you're not writing the kind of book that resonates with the kind of people who listen to Spotify. Spotify is just a really different crowd. It's very interesting. The Apple Music crowd is in Spotify. Like, those charts don't reflect each other at all.
Right. Well, they're very different people. And the people that are on Spotify are there to listen to music for free.
Dawn, can you try posting a comment? I tried to unban you. I don't know how much banned you were. If Jonathan nuked you out of it was an orbital strike, and she's no longer on the planet.
Oh, good. Yeah, she's here. Yay. All right. It's a she. Okay, good. Yes. All right. Awesome. I am so sorry about that.
Dawn is now the first whitelisted person. I had to figure out how to whitelist someone here on YouTube. So, Dawn,
all right.
With great power comes great responsibility. So please be judicious with your new higher level of approval.
Comment responsibly.
I have some news. So last week I was interviewing Joanna Penn for an episode that went live this week, and we're talking about the business side of writing. And it was a great conversation. I love interviewing Joanna. I love having her on my podcast. I love being on her podcast too. And I think my favorite topic to talk with her about is business. I think my very first interview with her 10 years ago was about the business side of writing. A lot of people try to make business for writers and being a business as a writer this exotic thing, and you need to buy their expensive course to learn how it's weird and different. And I went to business school. It's just a business. There's very little about the author business that is unique or special. There's a few things that you need to know, but
are you saying a lot of it is special, Thomas?
Just like everybody
else. You're supposed to
Jonathan.
Make me feel special.
Business fundamentals are business fundamentals, whether you're selling books or dry cleaning. And one of the business fundamentals that we talked about in that episode is it's important to have a business plan. And there was a Patron Toolbox tool that has been on my list to build for 6 months or more, called the Business Plan Generator, where you answer a bunch of questions and it takes your questions, it takes my tuning and training, and it generates a business plan for you. And so I made the mistake of, on that episode, saying to Joanna, I'll make that. I've decided I'm going to make that tool.
Oh no.
Suddenly I had given myself a deadline. It has nuked my whole week. We were late getting ready for this episode because I'm still trying to catch up. But the good news is the Business Plan Generator is operational. It's like the Death Star in Return of the Jedi. It is fully capable of blowing up a planet, and people are using it, and they are enjoying it. It's a more involved tool to use. Most of the Patron Toolbox tools are really easy to use. You just upload your manuscript, and then they do the thing. In fact, I just upgraded the character compendium, where it now lists every single character in your book, and it gives you a bio and their arc if they have one, and guidelines for the audiobook narrator. And I tested it on my brother's book, which was hundreds of thousands of pages with 40 plus characters. It did all of them, and it will write 50 pages if need be. That's a really easy tool to use. Getting it to work and all that was hard on the back end. The business plan tool is not like that, because you do have to answer a lot of questions. But the hardest questions to answer on that tool, I actually have other Toolbox tools that will help you get an answer for that question. So there's a question where it asks you to describe your Timothy, which is, if you've listened to my podcast, that's your target reader that you're trying to thrill. If you go to the Toolbox, there's a Timothy Finder tool that will help you describe your Timothy, and you can just copy and paste from the one tool into the other tool. Same thing with giving a pitch for your book, right? If you have a back cover copy for your book, the business plan tool will use that. There's a tool, you upload your book and it will write back cover copy. It'll write a 1-paragraph pitch. It'll write a 1-sentence pitch. And another one is competing books. That's hard for a lot of authors to find competing books for their books, or comps as we call them in the biz. Well, I have a Patron toolbox to help with that too. So anyway, I encourage you to check out the business plan generator.
Listen to you.
The business plan generator is 10/10. It took half my afternoon, but totally worth it. Yay. 10 out of 10. Oh, okay. That's what that means.
Listen to you. You're like, I got an episode for that. Now I got a Patron tool for that. I got a blank for that.
Yeah, the tools are there. The episodes are creating the tools. So, and Jeremy said, thank you for the toolbox. Thank you, Jeremy. And thank you for the super chat. We really appreciate the super chats. Your super chats help keep the show on the air. And this is a new phenomenon for the show, and we really appreciate it. All right. Podcasts have surpassed talk radio in total minutes listened. This, I was kind of surprised just happened, because for me personally, it happened about 15 years ago. I used to listen to a lot of talk radio, and now I listen to a lot of podcasts.
Everyone else is catching up with you, Thomas. You trendsetter.
It's important to realize that not everyone is like you. Not everyone thinks about rum every 5 minutes. Some people only think about ancient rum once a day. But some people, they listen to a lot of radio. But now we have a new study from Edison Research, which is the gold standard for audio research. They have a big share of ear study that comes out every year. Jonathan, what are the details?
So these numbers come from the company's share of ear study. As of the fourth quarter of 2025, podcasts accounted for 40% of all-time Americans aged 13 and older spent with spoken word audio. AM/FM radio sits just behind at 39%. Spoken word content overall makes up 25% of daily audio time across the country. The studies tracks exactly how people divide that time between different sources and platforms. So are you listening to music? Are you listening to, really it's music or spoken word audio? And so this change is pretty dramatic, because in 2015, AM/FM radio was 75% of spoken word listening time, while podcasts only held 10%. I mean, I remember my dad listening to Rush Limbaugh every single day, and that was 3 hours. Like, you were listening to the man for 3 hours. And so
now people are listening to Joe Rogan for 3 hours, right? That's the shift.
He's a podcast.
Right. The audience is complaining we haven't gotten to our Zeitgeist segment. We are going to get to it this week.
Yes, we promise.
The big takeaway for this radio story is, as you're putting together your launch plans, currently for a lot of authors, radio has a higher status than podcasts for getting the word out about your book. But in reality, podcasts should have the higher status, and they're far more effective because, radio, people tend to listen to that in their car where they can't easily take action. Podcast episodes often will have links and a description and sometimes a blog post that goes along with it. And so somebody hears a podcast, it's a lot easier for them to look up that podcast and tap the link to buy the book than it is for them to remember the book title on radio. So this shift in listener behavior from radio, terrestrial radio, to podcasts is a good trend for authors.
Something that I like to do is I will read my book for practice before I read it for audiobook for real. I'll read it for practice on YouTube. You can make a podcast out of that. If you want to do a serialized read through of your book, hey, this is the unfinished, unvarnished audio. I put no work into this. You can do that, and you can garner. And Patreon has that. Like the people who back you on Patreon love to see your raw drafts that you're creating, your raw content that you're creating.
Paul is asking, where's my podcast about ancient Rome? Paul, every podcast is a podcast about ancient Rome.
Oh my goodness.
All right,
Okay.
real quick
Let's
before
talk
we
about-
get to
Okay, go ahead.
real quick before we get to Zeitgeist, we do have a really fun Zeitgeist segment. But before that, we have a few quick AI stories. The first one is that Google has launched Nano Banana 2. We used it for today's thumbnail, so you can judge whether you liked today's thumbnail or not. And I will say a one-shot this thumbnail, because again, running late. So normally we generate a whole bunch of thumbnails and we pick the one we like the best. This time we only had time for the one thumbnail, and you get to see what the one thumbnail is. It's better and cheaper. It's supposed to handle text better. I'm going to be using it for our the book cover designer and the Patron Toolbox tool. I'm hoping to upgrade it in the next week or two to use the new Nano Banana 2. Not a lot to cover there. If you are familiar with Nano Banana, this is better and cheaper than Nano Banana Pro. So Nano Banana Pro was the current best model from Google. This is Nano Banana 2, which is based off the Flash model, and it's currently outperforming Pro on the benchmarks and at a cheaper token cost. I realize most of you don't pay for tokens, but some people pay for tokens every day.
Like I'm talking to somebody at an arcade in the 80s.
Hey man, can I borrow a token? All right, another big story that we're going to cover really quickly because it's kind of technical, and I know y'all want to hear about Zeitgeist. But there's been a turn of the tide, and Cloudflare has shifted from blocking AI crawlers to optimizing for them. It's still blocking the crawlers if you want it to, but it now has a brand new feature, which is called Markdown for Agents, which means that instead of blocking the AI, if you're using Cloudflare to host the domain for your website, and a lot of people use Cloudflare whether they realize it or not, you can serve up a markdown version of your web pages specifically for agents that make it easier for crawlers like ChatGPT and Claude and Grok.
It's like a zip file. It's like zipping the web page and making it smaller so it uses fewer tokens.
Yeah, or really it's like a plain text version of the page. So it's a version of the page without the images and without the graphics and without all the tracking and the ads. And part of me is like, well, I want to read web pages in this markdown format because it's a cleaner, less busy version. But any given web page, maybe 80% of what's there is a bunch of HTML noise to make it pretty. And all of that just creates a token cost for the AI agent reading the page. And it creates hosting cost for the website owner serving up the page. And this change saves money for web hosts and it saves money for agents, which means I am anticipating this to be the future. Because we talked about AI optimization last week, and we were talking about how Google's got a technology that they're going to make. They've announced it, but it's not ready yet, and there's nothing you can do. If you have Cloudflare and you're paying for Cloudflare at their lowest paid level, which I don't think most authors should do yet, and I imagine they'll put this into the free tier eventually. But if you have Cloudflare already, it's literally just a toggle. And because it already exists, and it's already working with Claude, and it's already working with ChatGPT, it's not working with Grok or with Gemini yet. But because it's saving everybody money and improving the quality for everyone, I'm anticipating this to be a rapidly adopted feature. And I'm personally very excited about it. I actually paid to upgrade Author Media's Cloudflare hosting to turn on this feature because I crawl my website a lot.
Yeah.
And AI Thomas crawls my website. And I would love for AI Thomas, which is my chatbot that's trained on all of my episodes that answers people's questions with the authority of Thomas and links back to the episodes. I would love for AI Thomas to ingest markdown versions of the web pages at a far lower token cost, which will improve the quality of AI Thomas's output because it's not having to sort through a bunch of noisy HTML. It's just got the signal. So I'm really excited about this feature. If you have a nonfiction blog and it's on WordPress, or if you're hosting through Cloudflare, you might consider turning this on. Otherwise, we'll just keep an eye on it. It'll get easier for this sort of feature for more people to use it in the future. All right.
We actually have an on-ramp into our Zeitgeist story today. So previously
we have a pre-Zeitgeist story.
Yeah, prepare yourselves. Previously we reported on this Kickstarter by Julia Quinn, who did the curated romance box, where she picked like 4 or 6 books that she selected and created premium editions of them on a Kickstarter. And basically it's a subscription. You get your Julia Quinn curated romance box every couple of months or every 3 months, depending on how many books are in the overall subscription. Well, how's it doing? Now, last time we reported that Harlequin is backing off of traditional historical romance and moving into other areas. Julia Quinn moved forward on Kickstarter. How is she doing? Well, the campaign set a modest goal of $10,000, and as of today, it has raised $416,789 from just 966 backers. That equals more than 4,168% of the goal, with a month left until the March 27 close. The average pledge is at $434. Now, you historical romance people are losing your minds right now, because you're like, what? Making $434 off a single backer.
And those are old numbers from
6 books.
And those are old numbers from earlier today. She's now up to $426,000 with 986 backers. Those of you watching the replay tomorrow, she'll probably be at 1,000 backers by then. She's on track to, actually, I can run a stats on this real quick. My guess is she's on track to hit $500,000 to a $750,000. She's what's the projection? She's projected to land, between about $500,000 and $700,000.
So this is an important trend, because now you have a difference in consumers in romance. Okay, you have your KU readers. These are your budget readers. These are the ones that, to them, it's a free book. They're willing to read any trash because it was free to them. They're just paying for their subscription every month, and they're not connecting the cost of the subscription with the cost of the book. You know what I'm saying? That they don't make that connection at all. That happens on our end as authors. But we're looking at romance readers who want to be a part of an elite romance club. I'm one of Julia Quinn's club members, and I read the books that it's like being in Michelle Obama's book club. You know, it's a very, there's a lot of prestige and elite status conferred or, diluted, but there's a lot of that status at play here that's causing these people to want to do this.
I actually have a podcast episode that explains exactly why this campaign is working, why Harlequin failed, and why indie authors are making so much money on KU. And I recorded it back in 2020. Because if you understand marketing psychology and you understand business principles, none of this is surprising. In fact, that episode was inspired by a paradox that Aristotle talked about a really long time ago. And it's known as the diamond water paradox. Why are diamonds more valuable than water? The more you think about it, the less it makes sense. If you think about it a little bit, because you can live your whole life without seeing a diamond and you're just fine, but you will die if you don't have water. And yet people will spend a lot more money for diamonds than they will for water. But they actually spend a lot of money for water too. In fact, you have spent more money on water in the last year than you have spent on diamonds in the last year, unless you've just gotten married. And so what you'll find in most markets is that there's 2 strategies to wealth. And those strategies are either scarcity or ubiquity. So scarcity is the diamond strategy. It's rare, it's hard to acquire, it's special, and it's expensive. And then ubiquity is the water strategy. It's common, it's easy to buy, it's everywhere. One of the wonderful things for authors, and it's one of the few product sectors in all of the economy that's like this, is that you can sell the same story as water and as a diamond. So yes, these books that she's selling her JQ editions for, you can go and buy ebook editions for maybe $5, maybe $10. Maybe you can read them for free if you're a KU subscriber. or you can pay $400 for the special edition. What doesn't work is in the middle. There's this pit of despair where you're a little bit scarce and you're a little bit ubiquitous. Everyone thinks that's the best of both worlds, but that's actually where you go bankrupt, which I talked about in the episode. If the Harlequin people management had listened to my episode, maybe their historical romance line would still be around. And I encourage you to listen to that episode because it's all about pricing strategy, because a lot of people ask, what's the right price for my book? And that question is a stupid question because inside of it is an assumption. There is such a thing as stupid questions, and stupid questions have assumptions that are wrong. And the assumption inside of that question is that your book has a price. The reality is that your book has many prices. At any given time, it might have 3 or 4 prices, and over time, it will have maybe a dozen different prices. And so if you want to price your book effectively to maximize your revenue and maximize the experience and joy of your readers, because people are delighted to spend $400 for these premium edition books. They're not having their arm twisted. They're excited. They're exuberant. They're sharing it with their friends, right? They're happy to do it, while other readers are happy to get the cheap ebook. And so once you understand that there's not one price, there's many prices, and the price isn't fixed, it changes over time for various reasons, you'll find that I have, I think, half a dozen episodes on pricing strategy, which means that AI Thomas is actually very good at answering pricing questions because it has read all of my episodes on pricing strategy. Or you can listen to my episodes for free on the Novel Marketing Podcast, available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and everywhere you get your podcasts. I didn't mean to put a commercial. It's a free podcast. It's not even a commercial. I was at the Novel Marketing Conference. Okay, this is a conference where people spent hundreds of dollars, flew across the country. And I was shocked how many people came up to me at the conference who had paid for a ticket to the conference and who were like, I need to listen to your podcast. I've never listened to your podcast. I'm like, how are you here?
It's the free thing. What are you like? What was your entrance to this funnel?
Diamond water paradox, right? Some people prefer to pay for diamonds. They don't want to pay for water. And where your money is, there your treasure will be also. One of the challenges with a free podcast is because people don't pay for it, they're not very likely to put that advice into practice. I'll have a coach. I have coaching groups that I do, and I'll tell somebody in a coaching group the exact advice I had previously given on a free podcast episode, but because they had paid for that advice, now they listen to the advice.
Yeah.
Same with courses. The courses, my courses include a lot of exclusive content. You can only get my courses, but they also include a lot of episodes. So I'll have the course material on that particular topic, and then if I have any podcast episodes on that topic, I'll include it as extra credit. And and I've had many people tell me it hits different. And they say it hits different because I had ears to hear or the timing is right. But the real reason is it hits different because you paid for the course.
Exactly. So I did this on the Author Arsenal Writing Challenge in January, is that I charged people $100 for me to put them through a writing boot camp where they were gonna write their word goal for that month, okay? And I said no refunds. You know what that means? People have $100 writing on this, and they would give up on themselves. You see, authors will give up on themselves, but they won't give up on $100. And I got people to keep going because they were like, I'm gonna lose $100 if I stop.
That's a psychological strategy called a pre-commitment strategy, where you pre-commit to an outcome and then you basically agree upon a failure, a cost of failure. And in this case, the cost of failure is the money is lost. They don't get it back either way. But it's a surprisingly effective strategy. The no refunds. Sometimes offering refunds is the right thing to do. Like for my courses, I have a very generous refund policy. And for my conference, I have a ruthless no refunds ever policy. Partly because the conference sells out and it's limited and the costs are real.
Yeah.
But also because it's important for things to be real, for there to be real stakes and real consequences. Because some people get nervous coming up to the conference. They get intimidated. They don't want to come. And they'll try to weasel out and get their money back.
Yeah.
And when I tell them there's no refunds, they're like, okay, I'll come. Their reason wasn't
and
a
then
real
they have
reason.
a great time, you know?
And they have a great time. Yeah. 100% of people who filled out the survey said they were glad they came, and a whole bunch of them are planning to come back next year. But now it is time, Jonathan. People have been waiting for 2 weeks for a true zeitgeist segment. and it is time for a Zeitgeist segment. In this Zeitgeist segment, we are going to dive into the K-Lytics romance report.
My personal strength
about
romance.
women and what women want. So, Jonathan,
Yes.
what
All
do
right.
women want?
This report is the big boy. Okay. Romance is 70% of Kindle sales, of ebook sales on Amazon. Romance is the big dog. It has maintained and is not even challenged by any other genre in its position. Literature and fiction, the giant category that romance is a part of, barely edges it out. Okay. It boasts an average sales rank of 93 for its top 100 titles, which means about 641 estimated daily sales per title in the 100 in the top 100. For comparison, mystery, thriller, and suspense would sell 218 a day, and science fiction and fantasy would sit at about 283 a day. Now, long-term trends are revealing strength. The bestseller list surged starting in the middle of 2020 and has maintained high ranks since then. What happened in 2020? Everybody got locked in their houses, and people still wanted relationship. They're reaching for romance books. Okay. And that has maintained, because personally, I believe the damage done to our society in 2020 is reflected by the medication people are taking to try to alleviate the pain that they suffered there. Now, what is winning?
Let me pause you real quick. That's a really interesting insight on Zeitgeist. And we probably should do a whole segment on medications and how it's
Oreos.
impacting culture.
I self-medicate with Oreos.
A lot of people medicate a lot of ways, right? But I saw some stats, something like 30 million women in America are on SSRIs, and a lot of women are on birth control, both of which affect your preferences, your romantic preferences, your relational preferences, but also your entertainment preferences, and have an impact even on your mood and on your personality. And that's not to mention painkillers and all the we'll need to do some research on this, but we're glossing over some really big factors that if you want to understand your target audience, understanding what medicine they take can help, and how that's changing, because Gen Z is starting to rebel against hormonal birth control, which is a whole other Zeitgeist topic, because they see it as this intrusive, unnatural, the whole narrative around it is shifting in some really interesting ways.
The entertainment that you choose, you're trying to overcome a deficit of either dopamine or adrenaline, right? You're bored, so you want adrenaline. You're unhappy, you want dopamine, or unsatisfied or whatever. And people reach for it in all different kinds of places. I mean, the pornography industry has known this for decades, that when, men are trying to self-medicate, they go to porn. And the romance genre fits into this. There's a massive classification of the romance genre that fits the type of medication that pornography fills. Okay, so let me run through some numbers, and then we're going to continue to break this down. Okay, according to the numbers, I have some jokes to tell too, based on these numbers. Contemporary romance is right now leading the subcategory, so it's beating historical romance for now. It's achieving an average sales rank of 32 for the top 20 titles. That's over 1,000 daily sales per title. Holiday is following at 94. So you Hallmark people, Holiday still works. Romantic comedy is at 98. Romantasy is at 141. Romantic suspense, 154. Billionaires and Millionaires, 167. And it kind of just trends down from there. One thing I thought was really funny, though, is that he showed and I say he, the guy who made the K-Lytics reports, Alex, he showed a time chart that when it happened in March and in January, love triangles went up. So searches for books that had love triangles went up in January and in March. Okay, what happened in the previous month? Well, December is Christmas, when you're supposed to spend time with your family, and maybe you just went and met your boyfriend's family, and now you're looking for options. Or it was February, which is Valentine's Day, and now you're looking for options, or you're looking for something more exciting because he messed up in February. So it's fun to watch those trends and those spikes taking place throughout time. There is growth in several areas. The highest growth actually happens in LGBTQ and gay romance. That's the highest 12-month growth, and it comes primarily from hockey romances. So I guess people are into gay hockey.
When you're looking at these categories, it's really easy to think, oh, the whole category is hot because sales in the category are hot. When in reality, you'll have a book that is selling so well, it pulls the whole category with it. And there are some books that are hitting this whole category. The LGBT category is very interesting to me because we're seeing these categories all over Amazon now, and they function in the same way as the Christian categories do.
Yeah.
So you'll have Christian fantasy and you'll have LGBT fantasy. It's almost like it's the Christian version of the thing and then the anti-Christian version of the thing, and it's more of a target audience descriptor, just like Christian is more of a target audience descriptor. Because what really is included in that? Well, on Amazon, anybody can put any book in any of those categories, and they're not super strictly policed. Amazon's starting to police the categories a little bit, but not a whole lot. So this is an interesting trend that I have observed, and I'm seeing this all over the Amazon categories now, this proliferation of the rainbow categories.
So, but the overall thing that I think this report is telling us is that the human desire for relationship has not changed. Now, we've seen a lot of attacks on the family over the past 30 years for whatever reason. It was redefining marriage. It was normalizing divorce before that. Normalizing divorce and remarriage, because our culture wasn't always that way. And then we've continuously progressed through, okay, this is what a family looks like. I mean, there was a whole polygamy trend like 3 or 4 months ago where people were talking about that was the big thing on social media. So there's all kinds of attempts to redefine or to eliminate the traditional family, man, woman, children, as an element of our society. But we're seeing with the consistency of romance as a bestseller that the readers of romance, at least, which are overwhelmingly women, still want this family mindset. We saw it with the trad wife trend happening in social media like 6 months ago. And you can tell by what subcategories are surging to see what the readers are kind of feeling. So in the height of the feminist movement, like in the early 2000s, what did we get? We got 50 Shades of Grey, which was about basically BDSM. There was like submission kind of stuff.
We're so getting deep.
I know I'm sorry. I'm trying to
thanks to everyone who's super chatting this.
Like, I could totally go marine on this if you want, but you can see responses in the market to social trends that are happening, and it happens a lot in romance. So when you look and see at the stuff like hockey romance is big. Why? The typical hockey protagonist is a strong Chad, right? This guy goes onto the ice and hits people. He wants to get into fights. He's competitive. He is challenge oriented. I'm going to overcome this thing over here. And that's what women are reaching for right now, at least in the hockey, with the surge in hockey romance. There's probably going to be more hockey romance because of the Olympic thing. Okay. The US teams, took gold over Canada, which is amazing. I love that. I was cheering. But you're probably gonna see more stuff like that popping out in the market.
Here's something that I think is an opportunity for all authors, not just romance authors, and that is the number 2 most popular romance category. So I pulled up the K-Lytics report. The number 1 category is romance contemporary. That's not very interesting because that's number 1 all the time, and it's kind of a catch-all category. But the number 2 category is romance holidays, which is not what I would have expected the number 2 category.
It's family
oriented. Bigger than romantic comedy. It's bigger than romantasy, bigger than millionaires and billionaires, holidays. And anybody can write a holiday themed story, right? It's like every band makes a Christmas album eventually, right? Like your military sci-fi book if it has real Earth, you can have a real Christmas on the spaceship, right? And you can have a kind of a different tone, right? Where it's not the stakes of the universe. If you want to see this done really well, I encourage you to read Jim Butcher's Christmas short story that he wrote for the Dresden Files. It is a masterpiece. It's I think my favorite short story that I've ever read, period. And he just gives it away for free on his website. It hits a lot different if you've read the Dresden Files and you're kind of up to that point and you kind of know who the characters are. I'm actually curious how it would hit if you're not familiar with the universe and how it works. But I like teared up reading it. It was really powerful story. And it was very true to who the character Jim Butcher was. It was really true to the Dresden Files story, but it was also different and it felt very Christmassy. It really was a great, great story. And one of the things that we have to acknowledge when we're talking about this romance, and a lot of people are posting this in the chat, is that there's two ways to see the romantic book industry. You can see it as an extension of the literary industry, and you can see it as an extension of the adult entertainment industry. And more romance is being sold as porn, where the tropes and the fetishes and the various disorders are the selling point. And the another trend I've seen is that the covers, as the books are getting more and more explicit, the covers are getting less and less explicit.
Right.
In fact, I saw a whole YouTube video talking about why do romance covers look like children's books, and they're now indistinguishable from YA books, which is as a parent, I think that's a concerning trend. It's like,
yeah,
I never thought I'd say this, but I'm like, bring Fabio back.
Yeah.
Let people know what they're buying. Don't let them be surprised, or some parent who's buying some book for their kid that they think is about hockey, and they're shocked to find out that the book has almost nothing to do with hockey.
You say it fits those two industries. I think it fits the pharmaceutical industry. Like, you are getting back to the medication thing, you are looking for a particular thing. Now, Amazon has things in place. There's no erotica categories anymore. So now all these books, which can't be filtered or labeled as erotica, are now filtering into all these other categories. And you got to be really careful. And so they're masking them with these covers that don't appear to be this, it doesn't appear to be that dangerous. But there's an underlying promise, as particularly when you read from specific authors. There's the underlying promise of an experience. And I find, and I've been observing ladies for a while, watching rom-coms. I watched rom-coms with my mom. I watched rom-coms with girls when I was in college. And there's kind of this promise of a fictional relationship you can have for a little while. Because if you don't connect with the male love interest in the movie, you're just not going to do well. Like, for instance, I don't consider Tom Hanks to be a man's man. He is my wife's favorite rom-com protagonist. Okay. You've Got Mail is her absolute favorite movie. And why is that? Because he's good at articulating his feelings while he's awkward. He does well being vulnerable. He's funny. And he's not afraid to commit. He's always seeking the girl. You've Got Mail is about him going after the girl, and she doesn't even know who he is. There's a lot to be said for the promise of the experience you're going to have while you're reading this book. Okay, you're going to connect with a beautiful man, a man who's beautiful on the inside, who is tender, and you may have to get through that crusty exterior, but you can do it.
So a couple of things. One, as I'm going through this report, and you really should get the whole report from Klytics. If you go to authormedia.com/Klytics, I've got an affiliate link for the full Klytics report, because we're just skimming across the surface. But as I'm going through the report, enemies to lovers, do you think that's gone down or up in the last 12 months? It's gone down, and by 145%. This indicates
you kill Nazis.
This is, as we're shifting into the fourth turning, it's people are wanting romance where it's a man and a woman fighting together against an external enemy, not fighting together against each other.
Yeah. Write a book. I have a challenge. Write a book where a liberal woman falls in love with a MAGA guy. See how well it does. See how well it does.
There was a bunch of fake covers of like the ICE agents and the social justice activists falling in love with each other. The other thing I want to say, though, in terms of cultural trends that's driving this, and I think this can inform your nonfiction, and my one book that I wrote is on this topic because I saw this coming 10 years ago. In fact, I wrote a whole book about this 10 years ago, and people are finally acknowledging it, and that is the marriage epidemic. There is a higher number of unmarried people in the United States than ever before. So the rates of marriage have been dropping, and the rates of cohabitation have been dropping, and the rates of dating have been dropping. Like, most people are not in romantic relationships under a certain age. And I forget what the age cutoff is, but like Gen Z had the dating market completely broken for them for the bottom 80% of Gen Z. So the top 20%, they're fine. But the bottom 80% are not fine, especially in market style apps like the swipe left, swipe right type apps. And part of this is a corporate created problem because almost all of the dating apps are actually secretly owned by the same company, Match.com, which owns almost all of them. And it has a financial incentive to keep people single because as long as you're single, you're paying the monthly subscription.
Yeah.
And so they're promising to sell a solution and then they're not delivering on that solution. And they, if you want to read about a solution, you can go to Amazon and look for a book by Thomas Umstattd titled Courtship Crisis. I primarily address this from the right because what I was identifying in that book were problems with how conservatives were doing dating and relationships. And basically, we broke dating first, and then the left broke it in the same ways that we did and for similar reasons. So like we thought we were being countercultural, but really we were being group cultural. We were doing group dating before it was cool. And I do propose a solution in that book. Part of me wonders if I made a mistake choosing to pursue helping authors rather than become the dating and relationships guy. Because there was a fork in the road in my life and I had to choose one path or
How
the
does
other.
ancient Rome apply to your relationship? The alternate history we could have had.
I read Herodotus. I know what he wrote about Babylonian dating and courtship practices and how they changed over time. In fact, the collapse in the Babylonian dating market is very similar to the collapse in the market. We're going to do it right now. We're in Zeitgeist. So
no.
You asked
I did
for
not
this,
consent
Jonathan.
to this.
Herodotus visits Babylon and he talks about how they used to do matching up men and women to get married and how they do it now. And he said in the olden times in Babylon, they would bring all of the eligible girls who are of marriageable age and they'd line them all up from prettiest to youngest and they would auction them off. And the wealthiest man would be paired with the prettiest woman, and the next wealthiest man would be paired with the next prettiest woman, and everyone would get married. And Herodotus, who is an ancient Greek historian writing before the time of Alexander the Great, so a very old historian, thought this was a great system and thought it was great, much superior to the system that the Babylonians had at the time that he was writing, which is where all of the women were just prostitutes. And we're seeing that same trend in our society now, where I saw a stat somewhere like 10% to 20% of Gen Z girls are on OnlyFans, right? So the like everyone becoming prostitutes trend is happening, right? So when you have a dating market that's a stable dating market, and obviously the auctioning off the women is offensive to our sensibilities. I'm not advocating that system, but it did pair up couples to be married where it's like OnlyFans, but there's only one fan and he pays for all of your expenses for the rest of your life, right? It's like that's what marriage is. And that market collapsed into something that led to my wife later. That led to a civilizational collapse for Babylon that Babylon never really recovered from. Like, Babylon was not a significant city after they experienced that civilizational collapse as a result of the dating market collapse, right? It's like, because the core of a civilization is virtuous women. And
Yeah.
if you don't have
Yep.
virtuous women as mothers and as matriarchs of families holding everything together, the Beauty and the Beast story is this ancient story that you see versions of it in the Bible, you see versions of it in almost every civilized culture has versions of it, because the virtuous woman taming the beast to create civilization together is a tale as old as time. It's a very important story. But if you don't have the virtuous woman, you don't have the taming of the beast. And what you end up with is beastly men and non-virtuous women, which is barbarism. It's not civilization.
Kind of where we are.
No, it's not. But it's where we're headed. We still have a chance, Jonathan. There's a chance to turn around. And part of what that could cause us to turn around is the fiction that we write, the stories that we celebrate, the heroines that we hold up as good and virtuous heroines, the villains that we hold up as villainous villains, right? Who are the good guys? Who are the bad guys? Is creating of civilization good, or is creating of barbarism bad? Because it does get to a point, going to Rome, whoever's doing the Rome counter, it can tick it up. Rome got so corrupt at the end that so many people in Rome were slaves and were treated so poorly that when the barbarians came and took over, the stature of the skeletons that we find post collapse of Rome are larger. The slaves had been, the state had become so corrupt and the elites were so oppressive that it was actually better for the slaves to be conquered by barbarians and turned into peasants, which is this long, slow process, than it was for them to keep living under the benefits of civilization,
right?
Because the civilization had gotten so corrupt. And we are way off the topic of romance.
No, but this is where we're supposed to be, though. Like this all applies.
This is the Zeitgeist segment. We warned you. We forgot to give the disclaimer. Once we talk about Zeitgeist, we stop talking about industry news and we get political. And so if you're offended by the political stuff,
if they were going to leave,
already.
They would be gone. I nuked them a while ago. So I'm writing Shades of Black 3 right now, and there's a part in it where the girl love interest has to try to redeem the male hero. He's made some mistakes. He's messed up. And it's her belief in his ability to do the right thing. She believes...
Oh, we are in the presence of true dad humor.
Oh, boy. Anyway,
that may be the episode
where I was. Like, I gotta do the
clip title, Romance.
Romance. But I'm trying to explore this idea that men do often on their own choose to do the right thing, but they're more often compelled by the expectations placed on them. Men have very strong relationships with their mothers, usually. It's been a trope that sons love their mothers and daughters love their fathers. And there's this special relationship or this special bond. Your mother expects you to be a good son. She expects you to be a good person. And when you get married, you are now treating a new woman and you need to match expectations. Well, you can track this historically, even just recently. Okay. Women got into the feminist movement, right? Don't need no man. Okay. So men changed. They became metrosexuals. They became way more feminized so they wouldn't be a threat, so that they could work alongside women, so that they continue to get women, right? There's a competition angle here. And so that's what happened. Then the world got dangerous because a lot of guys didn't change and they stayed bad guys. They stayed monsters. But now we didn't have any knights to kill monsters. And so now we're seeing a surge in women are like, wait, where are the knights? Like, and we're seeing this in the return of the Arthurian romances. Where are the knights? Where are the heroes? Where's Superman? You see, Batman's not trending well anymore. Superman is. And they're continuing to try to get Superman back. And the last one was awful, whatever. But they're continuing to try to make it work. What's another example of a good guy people want to win? Henry Cavill is getting every role on the planet right now.
The Medal of Honor winner, if they make a movie about his life, it will be played by Henry Cavill.
Yeah, exactly. Like, but what's he getting? He's getting Highlander. Okay, he's getting Garen from League of Legends. They're going to put him in the next Arcane, which they're doing. And Garen's the ultimate good guy. And you listen to Henry Cavill talk, and you're like, man, you're just a good guy, right? And people are looking for this, and they're wanting for it. They're just hungry for this kind of thing. So when you're writing your books and you want to meet a universal need that's in your readers, right now they're starving for good relationships. They want good men and good women who expect those men to be good men.
Which is what the East has been providing, Eastern storytelling, for a long time. So if you go to Barnes & Noble, I challenge you. I'm talking about this in an upcoming episode, so I don't want to tease it too much. But I went to a Barnes & Noble and I counted the shelves. Do you know which section of the Barnes & Noble had the biggest section of shelves? It wasn't romance, it wasn't nonfiction, it wasn't business. It was manga. Like it felt like a quarter of the store had been devoted to manga, because in Eastern storytelling, you see stories like Sword Art Online, where it's a man and a woman who fall in love and are fighting together to make the world a better place, to save others. The conflict is not between them primarily. It's not that it's all roses and butterflies, but the core conflict is not a man against man against woman conflict. It's a man and woman against man conflict, where they're a team fighting against the enemy. And as I'm looking over this report, there's one stat that really has me sad, Jonathan.
What's that?
It's the ancient world historical romance is down 88%.
Oh, is that the one? Is that the one you read in? Is that the one you read?
Yeah, is not doing well.
Ancient romance.
People want Arthurian stories, I think, more than they want ancient world Arthurian stories. But the Eastern storytelling, which I have a great episode on this, on the chiastic structure, that if you want to understand Eastern storytelling, there's a huge age gap here. The younger somebody is, the more Eastern storytelling they consume. And the older somebody is, the less of it they consume. It's not uncommon for me to come across a boomer who's never seen a single anime, has never read a single manga, and has not read a single lit RPG at all. Like they just have experienced no Asian stories at all. And they're not sure why their stories aren't resonating with young people. And it's like, you realize that young people are consuming every year more Eastern stories than they were the year before. And it's not because Western audiences crave Eastern stories. It's that Western readers crave these kind of universal principles that the Eastern stories are providing, and the gatekeepers in charge of Western publishers are gatekeeping. And I have a whole episode where we're going to dive deep on this very topic with a indie author who's sold 1 million copies in the last 4 or 5 years, basically hacking this exact thing. And he's going to share his secrets, and I'm very excited about it.
So
I haven't recorded the episode yet, but hopefully we'll deliver on all these promises I'm making.
Well, there you go. You're there you go, doing it again. But you also have to look at the Asian culture that has been producing this literature that has this stuff, because there has been such a drastic drop in the population in Japan because Japanese women can't stand young Japanese men. And it's an actual social trend that they're experiencing in Japan because of the prevalence of the amoral entertainment culture there.
I actually heard an alternate theory to this that I think explains what's going on in Japan.
Okay.
Japan had arranged marriage for thousands of years.
Sure.
They got rid of arranged marriage, and at the same time, they basically got rid of marriage. It all has to do with a stable dating market. And they never had a stable dating market. Rejecting the old way.
Because they never went and got their own.
And by the point that they had adopted the American dating market, the Western dating market, ours was already broken. It's like, hey, our system is getting worse every year. Would you like it? And they were like, yes, we would like it. We're going to use it. And it declined there. It declined here. But they didn't have the history of the community dance where everyone's going to the dance together and all of these kind of cultural
go here to meet girls thing that didn't happen in Japan.
And the way that family is conceived of is different in Asian countries and in some Western countries too. Like in where I am in Greater Appalachia, the family is very much seen as a husband and a wife and their kids. It's the nuclear family. It's not a multi-generational family. The relationship with the daughter and the mother-in-law is not seen as very important, right? We joke about it. It's not very important because we're living on different homesteads or we're living in different parts of town and we're not interacting very much. And so why would the mother have a voice in who the daughter-in-law is going to be? She's hardly going to see her. She'll see her at Christmas and Thanksgiving. But if you're all living together, suddenly that relationship's really important, not just for the mother and the daughter-in-law, but also for all the men involved and all the children involved. If they're at war all the time in this multi-generational family, everyone is miserable.
So that's why they all had a say in choosing who came into this really close-knit community, who would be accepted into this. I actually gave a briefing in the Marine Corps to several higher-ranking officers on why honor killings existed in Islamic culture. And it doesn't go back to the Muslim religion. It goes back to nomadic culture, which is anything that came out of the darkness in the night was there to kill you. And that they didn't fight wars. They did raids on each other. And the reason you would raid someone, you had to be able to justify it to other people you were trading with. So there had to be a moral component involved. Well, if this guy's daughter has been found in fornication or found or anything like that, now you have a moral reason to go raid him, kill him, and take his stuff, and you can justify it to all the other nomads. So what would happen to prevent being targeted by other nomadic tribes, the man of the house would perform some kind of over-the-top punishment on the offending daughter or the one who had caused him to lose face or something to preserve the rest of the tribe, to keep the killing from happening. I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm telling you why it happened. And then the tradition just prevails throughout time as we're getting away from the raiding periods, which that tribal culture is not as far gone as you think. Okay, as a guy who fought that war, okay, it is not gone.
Those deep-rooted cultural sensibilities, like the Celtic culture, is still very much alive in Greater Appalachia. Like it, religions can have an influence on that culture, but like peoples are peoples.
Don't whistle in the woods. What are you doing?
Which is funny because in Russia, if you whistle inside, they're like, you should do that in the woods. or no, what is it they say? They're like, where do you think you are, in the woods? Because whistling indoors is seen as very, very rude. All right. We have talked about Zeitgeist for a lot longer than perhaps we should have. So anyway, thanks to everyone who super chatted. Thank you for compensating for our very likely to be demonetized or undermonetized.
Yeah, it's gone.
And thanks to everyone who are patrons. Do check out the new business plan generator. I'm now actively making Patron Toolbox tools again. Now that I have recovered from the conference. So if there is a tool that you would like, feel free to shoot me an email. Some of the best tools ideas I get come from authors whining about things that are bothering them. Because sometimes I can fix something that's bothering you. Sometimes I can't. Sometimes the problem is you. But often the problem can be fixed with a better
User
tool.
error 99.
User error 99. Oh, I really need to stop talking. In a multitude of words, sin is not lacking. And on that, please like, subscribe, ring the bell, and come back next week at 4 p.m. Central Time for more author update. I'm Thomas Semstat Jr.
And I'm Jonathan Sugar.
Live long and prosper.